Hey guys, Dan here with another edition of Dan Reviews It. This time it's a standalone movie review. I know I have not gotten to a lot of movie reviews lately. The channel's been focused a lot on the television side of things, specifically Roseanne, and it's rare anymore that I get to a movie like right away, opening weekend, opening night. But tonight I did. I went and saw Deadpool 2, and so I thought, you know what? Let's get this thing up there on the channel. So let's talk about it. Now, Deadpool, the original, is fantastic. It was in my top 10 of the year. I gave it an A. Excellent movie. A real groundbreaker, honestly. You know, not only in its box office take and its massive success financially, but just everything about it was so unique and different from most of the superhero movies that we had seen previously, specifically on this big a scale. You know, we'd see in some R-rated superhero movies like a Kick-Ass or Blade or what have you, but, you know, this is coming from the Marvel Universe, sort of X-Men-y. You know, he is an X-Man, although not, you know, it's talked about in Deadpool, the original, but, you know, here he is an official X-Men apprentice, which is hilarious. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Deadpool 2. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I really try not to do spoilers, because I know I like to go into a movie fresh, so, you know, rest assured that you will not hear too many things from my mouth that you're going to be like, oh God, no, you know, don't tell me that. But, you know, all the cast is back. You've got Ryan Reynolds, of course, as Wade/Deadpool. You've got T.J. Miller in there, Monica Baccarin, and, of course, the couple of X-Men that they brought along for the first one are back as well. There's some newcomers, of course. Much has been made about Josh Brolin being Cable. I mean, that guy is everywhere. He just did Thanos in in Infinity War, which featured the Guardians. And then he's also going to be out in just like a month and a half in Sicario 2, playing, you know, a very, very different role, but though also an action movie. But I love Josh Brolin, so it was cool to see him do Cable. And then Julian Dennison is in the film. I believe that's his name. He was in a movie called Hunt. Yeah, Julian Dennison. Hunt for the Wilder People, which was in my top 5. I guess it was 2 years ago now, with Sam Neill, and that was just an excellent movie. So I love seeing him be in this huge super scale movie like Deadpool 2. So the budget is certainly bigger on this film, and why not? You know, they really took a risk on the first one. Ryan Reynolds basically, you know, more or less staked his career on that film. I mean, he would have done all right if the movie bombed, but after Green Lantern, you know, it's good to have him do a superhero movie that's hugely successful. I kind of liked Green Lantern, but it gets a lot of guff, and actually there's a couple of very wry references to Green Lantern in Deadpool 2. So, without giving too much away of the story, basically, you know what? There's so much I can't say. But it's a revenge story, and you know what? I'm not even going to really give you a plot. I'm not, because it's pretty spoilery right from the word go. So I'm not going to do that. We'll just kind of get into the specifics of what I liked and didn't like about the movie. So for one thing, you know, the cultural references are back. Obviously, there are a ton of them in this movie. Most of them you will get. Some of them, like in the first one, you might not. I know when he called the blind woman, Ronnie Millsap. I knew who that was vaguely, but I think that was one that went over a lot of people's heads. And there's some here that might as well, and that's okay. You know, Deadpool just kind of fires him out there, and if you get him, you get him. If you don't, you don't. In terms of the references, I actually am going to see the movie a second time. I'm not sure how long I'll wait. You know, maybe a few weeks, or maybe till it's in my theater, which is a second-run theater. And I say that because, you know, going to the first show of opening night of Deadpool 2, it's pretty packed, and so there was a lot of laughter, as you would expect, and so there were honestly a few lines here and there that I missed, and I think they were other jokes. I don't think it was like plot points, but I think it was like one joke went and it got huge laughs, and then the next joke went right away, and it's like you're already laughing at the first joke, so you kind of miss it. So there were definitely going back a second time. I saw the first Deadpool in theaters twice as well. And another time on DVD, but you do always pick up something new because it's like they come at you so fast and furiously, the jokes. So the jokes are good. I would say the ratio of the jokes that work here is a little bit less than in the first one. The first one, I say most of them hit, but for a packed house, there were definitely at least like 8 or 10 lines that were clearly joke lines, and not one person in the whole theater laughed. So that is, not just me thinking it's maybe a miss of a joke, but that's a whole theater telling us that. So, I would say the ratio of jokes that hit is probably about 75 to 80% maybe, as opposed to probably like 90 to 95 in the first one. So, are they trying a little bit too hard? Maybe just a stitch, but not much. That was kind of my big worry when I saw the first Deadpool. I thought, well, this is going to be trying way too hard, and is it going to land right? And I thought the first one was executed brilliantly, and I think this one is in many parts as well, but there's some where it does fall a little flat with the jokes. I will admit that. This one also goes for a very touching sort of, I don't know, B story, I guess, maybe, or just maybe not even B story, part of the main story, I suppose, but they go for a big emotional note, a la Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, for example. I don't know that it necessarily gets there. I mean, that Cat Stevens song at the end of Guardians 2, it's like, it's hard to live up to that. It's one of the most touching movies, touching moments of any of the Marvel movies. I don't think this quite gets there. And I understand Deadpool's not in the MCU specifically. I understand that. So I'm not comparing the two as MCU movies. I'm just saying Guardians obviously is a Marvel property as well. So internet, don't jump on me for that. What else can I tell you that's not spoilery? Well, the action sequences, yeah. So Fox definitely, gave this one a bigger budget. It is more action, I think, and more grand action. There's a lot of explosions and a lot of, fight scenes and choreography and stuff like that. A lot on the road as well. There's like a bus chase kind of thing at one point. So you can tell that they amped it up. And most of it's pretty solid, a little bit of CGI looky-loo, you can kind of tell. But at the same time, it's Deadpool, and at one point he jokes that there's a CGI fight coming. So, that's sort of the name of the game with Deadpool. So most of the action sequences, I would say, worked. And I liked the plot line with the kid. The plot and the themes of this movie are pretty good. I think they did a good job sort of separating it enough from the first one, but so they're not like retreading the first one. Obviously, that's a huge sequel problem. Although I don't really find that as much with superhero sequels, and I guess that's because of the comic book base, that they have so many other things to draw from that you don't necessarily get like a Hangover 2 or a Pitch Perfect 2, where it's like kind of the same movie as the first one. So, you definitely know it's Deadpool. It is stamped from start to finish with Deadpool, down to the joking credits over the intro, just like the first movie, but in a different way and, in a creative way as well. And I should say, speaking of returning actors to the project, I should say that Leslie Uggams is back as the blind roommate, and his friend, the taxi driver, Dopinder, is back as well. So, pretty much all the main cast from the first one is back, except for the villain, of course. So that's cool to see everybody. There's more references to Marvel movies in this than I think the first one, but in general, there's more comic book references because, of course, like I said, there's Green Lantern references, but the DC references in general, not just Green Lantern, like abound. There's a bunch of DC references in this movie, from Justice League to Batman v Superman. So, again, I'm not going to spoil any of these for you. I'll just say that there are much more, I think, comic book references as from the first one. What else? The soundtrack, another great, funny, but also appropriate soundtrack. The first one had so many big songs that were kind of played for laughs in some scenes, and kind of just scoring the action in others. They do it here, but they step it up way more. There's I didn't read the Entertainment Weekly cover story on Deadpool 2. I try not to even read articles about movies until I've seen them, just because I don't want spoilers. But it says on the cover, with 30% more Yentl. Yes, there is Yentl in this movie. There are also, a ton of other songs that I can't even get into. But it's still with that similar theme of like a lot of 80s stuff. A lot of like power ballad type stuff. But one thing I will point out, just because I love this band and I'm so glad someone else picked up on a new version of this classic song, but Aha, Take On Me, is in this film in its new stripped down MTV Unplugged version. They did it must be for MTV Austria, I would assume, or Australia or whatever. Certainly wasn't here because Aha is not very big here. But I bought their MTV Unplugged because I'm a big Aha fan, and they play the unplugged version of Take On Me in this movie, and I was like, this is so cool. So I'm glad somebody else picked up on how great that version is, and it was very appropriate for where they put it in the movie as well. Like I said, a lot of the music is sort of appropriate for the scene, and some of it is just played for laughs. So overall, that's really all I'm gonna say. I will say this was a bit of a surprise for me. The Stan Lee cameo is almost not present. There is some Stan Lee reference in the film, but don't look too hard for it, because it's not actually Stan Lee giving a line or anything. And I read that may be because of his pneumonia that he was recently battling, that he wasn't able to. So that's possible, which is a shame. Of course, he plays the strip club DJ in the first one. But yeah, that was one thing that struck me as the movie ended. I was like, wait a second. There was no cameo, because of course his name is in the credits, as one of the producers or something like that. But overall, it is a good movie. Is it a great movie? No. Is it as good as the first one? Absolutely not. The first one, like I said, such a groundbreaker. And the first movie gets referenced a lot in this movie. He references the first movie's box office. And again, I'm not going to tell you all the jokes. So, but the first movie's, staying power, let's say, does get referenced in this film. So I think the resolution is good. I think it makes sense. I think there is some humor involved in it. So yeah, it's a solid movie, but it's definitely not the A of the first one. I'm going to leave Deadpool 2 with a B. It's good for sure, but you know what? I gave the first one an A- until I rewatched it in the theater, and then I gave it an A. So, like I said, I did miss some of the jokes, but I don't think it really hampers it that much, because it's not like I was missing major plot points. But definitely the joke ratio was lessened. More jokes fell flat than in the first one, and also that emotional stuff they were going for in the middle is not as great as I think that they would have wanted it to be. And definitely a cry from the Cat Stevens father and son bit in Guardians 2. So I leave Deadpool with a B. That is going to do it for me. Like I said, I don't do a lot of these standalone movie reviews because I don't usually get out opening weekend. And I know how the internet works. That's when you want to get them up there and people will watch them. The Quiet Place, when I did, was like a couple weeks after the fact, and nobody really watched it, but that happens. So, but do check out, I do have a bunch of other movie reviews up from the not too distant past. Like I said, I do have a Quiet Place review up, and there's also one for Love, Simon and Death Wish and The Greatest Showman. But I had to get my Deadpool one up there since I did see it tonight. So thank you so much for watching. Comment below, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Join us on Facebook at Dan Reviews It. And we'll see you next time for another movie review or Roseanne review or whatever you want to check out next time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.